Please note that this episode contains depictions of graphic injuries and suicide that some people may find disturbing.
You are listening to Beyond the Checkbox, a podcast that focuses on leading strategies around bringing more mental well-being into the workplace. My name is Ryan Todd. I'm a psychiatrist and the CEO of Adversity. I'm sitting down with industry-leading changemakers to break down their process and see how they are going above and beyond for their workforce mental well-being. Hi, folks. Welcome to the next episode of Beyond the Checkbox. I'm your host, Ryan Todd, where we talk about workplace mental health. We had an incredible interview with somebody named Jeremy Evans. Jeremy was one of the most compelling interviews that I've done because his story includes being attacked by a bear and he survived. And while the question is, what does that have to do with workplace mental health? First of all, who cares? The guy got attacked by a bear and he survived. So just talking to him was wild. His story is just so compelling. And we had to have him in the studio to chat with him. But I think actually it has a lot to do with mental health because Jeremy is, as I say in the show, he's a badass. This guy gets attacked by a bear, crawls for 12 kilometers out of the forest, drives for another 20 minutes to get to help, and survives. And his story is just gripping on how he did that and survived after being mauled by a bear and literally being on death's doorstep. And his story is really one of purpose and using a lot of mental health skills, A, to survive, and B, to get through the massive burden of PTSD that he suffered for years after this attack. It was an emotional one. I hope you enjoy it, and please give your feedback on it because I think Jeremy is an exceptional person. Another note that Jeremy has a website, grizzlydude.ca, and he also has a foundation that supports individuals who have PTSD, and this is a research foundation. So we're going to put up all the links so you can donate to that and support Jeremy in his cause of helping people through PTSD like he has been helped. Inspirational person, one of the best interviews that I think we've done. I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for joining Beyond the Checkbox. So tell me about the company. What were you doing before?
So I owned my own electrical company. The year I got married, actually, I worked for a company putting up cell phone towers all throughout Calgary and Saskatchewan, BC. And I go to get married, went on my honeymoon, and I get a phone call halfway through the honeymoon saying, yeah, we closed the doors. And so I was like, okay, whatever.
Wow.
And then I got home. My phone was filled with phone calls from the cell tower companies that we're building towers for. Yeah. They said, do you want to open up your own company and continue doing the work that the other company had? And I said, sure. I had my master's as an electrician, so I opened up my own company and then continued on with that. Was a lot of traveling involved in it. It was fun. Yeah. But being in, 25, 26 years old, running around doing that, it took a toll. Then I got into more adrenaline style sports because you have a lot of money and you can have a lot of fun. And that just kind of snowballed into doing some really bad things. And it wasn't for my good friend who noticed it. I went skydiving and we videotaped it. I'm jumping out of a plane and there's no emotion in my face. And he asked, were you scared? I was like, no. Well, I got a parachute. What if it doesn't open? I guess it doesn't open. I never thought about it. And he said, that's kind of weird, don't you think? And I didn't think anything of it. And he said, well, I got to go up to the hospital to go get some medication. Do you want to come with me? I got to pick up a prescription. And I was like, sure. And we got off into the hospital there and we walked into the emergency room and he walked up to the window there. And I'm like, well, this is kind of weird. And he said, my friend he was experiencing he had a bunch of technical terms. He was a social worker. Yeah.
Your friend was a social worker?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he was talking to the lady at the window and said, my friend, he was experiencing this and this and this. And something about depression. And she looked at me and she goes, is this true? And I had the opportunity to take off. And I didn't. And that's what my buddy said to me about, do you like how things are going now? Like how you living your life? And I said, no. And I went in and found out that I was going through depression and ADHD. And then that was a huge change for me.
It was kind of incredible that your friend recognized it and you had you had some insight maybe, but you didn't really know. And he kind of had to bring you to that moment to get through it.
Yeah. And he did it in such a way, like it clicked. It was easy to he said it, and there's just that what you're doing right now is not working. Like, do you like the way you live? I'm like, no, like things are not going good. I said, let's try something different.
So despite doing a lot of fun things, making good money, have your own business, you're rolling, you still wasn't
satisfying.
Yeah.
Just always searching for that next adrenaline rush that I guess looking for acceptance or just not being satisfied with what you're doing. It's just a weird feeling.
So that was really the start of your mental health journey.
That was.
I mean, some people would think it sort of started after this really traumatic event, but it was years before that you started, seeing maybe like what happened after that? Did you start getting treatment or what'd you do?
So after that, first I got some medication for depression, and I made an appointment with my family doctor right away.
Yeah.
And then we went to go get an assessment as ADHD, and I went and saw 3 or 4 different doctors in Calgary get diagnosed, see if I was a candidate for ADHD. And all of the first 3, they said that I wasn't a candidate because I didn't do drugs, I didn't smoke, I'm not really addicted to anything.
Yeah.
Just adrenaline sports, and it just wasn't quite a classic case. And then I got into the Foothills Hospital to go see a doctor there, and I don't know if I can say her name.
Yeah, I think so. Well, we can ask her, Dr. Binder, Sarah Binder.
Yeah, Dr. Sarah Binder. And I got in there and I sat down with her and did a 45-minute session. And she says, yeah, you have ADHD. Like she was kind of like surprised that no one else saw it.
Yeah.
But then I, did some more research on her, and she is a ADHD specialist. Like
she's an expert. She's the expert.
She is the leading.
So. Yeah.
And but first we had to get me off of get through the depression side before we can treat the ADHD side.
Yeah.
So I worked with her for the first year, got off of the depression medication, got things kind of back on track, got me on ADHD medication. And then I started to excel, being way more organized, started to excel with my own company, started being more successful,
Nice.
Built the relationship back up with my wife. Everything was going really good, and we started talking about having a family. And so then that went on for, I'd say, about 2 years. And I gave up my company and a bunch of my cool toys to have kids, to make that commitment. And my wife wanted me home more to be able to start a family. So I got a job in town as a maintenance manager. Did that for a couple of years, and pretty stressful, but I got through it. We had our first kid. That was amazing. Things are going really, really well. My career was starting to really grow with being a maintenance manager at a beef facility. I was getting ready to get discharged. We had like one more meeting left.
Discharged from
the ADHD side. Yeah,
okay. From seeing a therapist, working through. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, things were going really, really well.
Yeah.
And then I go on a hunting trip, and along comes a bear, and it just destroyed everything again. I wouldn't necessarily say destroyed everything, but it was another challenge for me to overcome.
Yeah.
Because now, facing near death experience, and my daughter being only 8 months old at the time. And it just was a bunch of things all at once.
I've always wondered how people, like, some people would not want to talk about it. Are you typically okay to talk about it? And when you do, is it therapeutic for you? Is it helpful? Is it traumatic to kind of relive it and get into it again? Like, how do you think about talking about the event, the attack?
Well, so at first it was really hard for me to talk about it. Like, not a lot of people knew that I got attacked. They knew something happened. And
Interesting.
A lot of people didn't know about the book until just before it came out. A lot of people know that, you know, you can see the facial scars and stuff. At first, it was really hard to talk about it because I was always fighting a bear in my head constantly.
What do you mean by that? Tell me what.
So the nightmares, flashbacks from the incident.
Yeah.
So if there were certain sounds like plastic breaking or ice cracking, like when you take an ice tray out of the fridge and you to crack it, it sounds like your skull being chewed on. And
shapers.
So those things would trigger like a flashback, or it just take me back into that moment where I'm being dragged back into the bush, or bears biting my side of my face. And it could be like a smell too would bring it up.
Yeah.
It just noises, just being in certain stressful situations.
Like just stress,
lack of sleep. And so I struggled with the nightmares to the hospital. And then about 6 to 8 months after being out of the hospital, I was diagnosed with PTSD.
So you were in the hospital 6 months after this bear attack.
Oh, no, so the bear attack, I was in the hospital for 5 weeks, and then
5 weeks,
6 to 8 months after the bear attack, talking to a therapist, I was diagnosed with PTSD.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some good days, bad days, and things started going fairly bad. And so I was diagnosed with PTSD, and that scared me.
Can you tell us more about what PTSD is? Because people talk about it. Some people might not know or have heard of it really. Tell us more about what that experience was and what is it? What is post-traumatic stress disorder?
So for me, it was more when you get trauma, it's the triggers or the nightmares and flashbacks that you get from a traumatic situation. For me, it's like bringing me back into the moment that happened.
You go right back to that moment.
Back to the moment. So I could be walking down the street and I could hear the sound of ice breaking, like walking across some ice, and I'd drop and think I'm getting chewed on by a bear. And you're in like a trance, and you're seeing the bear there. It's coming after you or pulling you, and there's nothing you can do. And then that part's okay. It's the part after when you start coming to, and you're like, I'm in the middle of downtown. Why is there a bear here? Why am I here? And that confusing part of how did I get here? It's like you just walked into a portal, and it just trying to understand that, like, it's confusing. And you jump back and forth. It's
so vivid. I had no idea that it was that intense or that vivid. Like you not just, I like have some physical symptoms or I think about it or flashbacks. You're there. Like it takes you right back to that. Like you think you're there again.
Yes. Like
wow.
I've had my neighbor woke me up in the middle of wintertime underneath my deck crawling around. And he's like, what are you doing? I'm getting away from the bear. He's like, dude, like you're at your house.
Yeah.
You know, my wife, I'd be laying in bed and I'd also start flopping and rolling around, having a nightmare fighting the bear. And if anybody touched me anywhere other than my feet, it would cause me to go even worse. And I start punching and flailing, and sometimes it could last up to 10 minutes. And you honestly don't, and you come to and you're like, what happened? Where am I? Why am I at home? You know, why is there a bear here? It's that disconnect that.
The other interesting thing too is, like, I imagine it sort of becomes a part of your identity, like a tragedy in some way becomes part of who you are because of the flashbacks, but because people are interested in it. Or do you fight that too sometimes? Like, I get a sense you're sort of embracing it in a way.
Well, yeah, I'm a survivor. I'm not a victim. I survived it.
Yeah.
And as soon as you can accept that, you can move on with it. Is what I find. Like for me, just the fact that, hey, I beat the bear, I survived, I'm here today. I did everything right. I don't have to second guess myself because I'm here.
Was that a thing where you were like, you felt some guilt or shame around, like, I was in the wrong place or I should have done something different? Or
no, that never actually cross my mind. Well, it did at first. I remember day 1 or day 2 in the hospital when they woke me up. There's a game warden there who told him about what happened, and he asked about what they want done with the bear. And one of the things he said to me was, "You're a survivor. You're not a victim. You're a survivor." And that kind of struck, with me. And then one night in the hospital, my older brother was there, and I was kind of second guessing, like, should I have fought back? Should I have laid there? What should I have done? And he said, "Don't think about that. You're here."
Yeah.
And then since then,
Yeah. I think that's something first of all, I can't imagine. I don't think anyone can imagine that severe of a trauma. Like, our brains just can't go there. But I think I would struggle with that. Like, how did I mess this up? What did I do? Like, should I have fought back more? Like, we have all these conceptions of what you should have done. And anyway, it's good to hear that you've been sort of relieved of that, because it's true. Like, it was just a rare and wild and horrible tragedy in a lot of ways.
yeah, I don't necessarily call it a tragedy. It's just it's an experience.
Tell me about that, because I think most people would say, like, this poor guy, he got attacked by a bear, and you've reframed that as an experience. That's incredible.
It's I guess how I see things to get over it. Like, there's a picture of me missing my face, and I show people that, and I'm like, yeah, I used to be fat there. Like, I mean, like, it's like, to me, it happened, but I'm here, and it's not. I don't need to. If you dwell on it, you're not going to overcome anything. You're just going to be stuck there in that moment, and you use that as a barrier, but it's not. Like, you got to be able to push through that, keep going, because there's so much more out there that you can do, and you can't let an experience like that stop you from doing what you love to do and for continuing living your life.
I think that's really incredible, because you didn't have to. Like, you could have dwelled on it. You could have been stuck in that. Like, you have a choice pretty much every day to do that. So what pushed you? What pushed you beyond that, and what pushed you to saying, hey, this is an experience, and I'm a survivor, not a victim? Like, what got you to that place?
Well, I think it was laying on the mountainside there. Like, I had a choice there to lay there, die, to end it myself, or to get out. I mean, yeah, I tried to end it, and that didn't work. And that banging the gun going offside my head kind of clicked, like, hey, I got to try. Like, this is just something I need to overcome. Like,
are you okay to talk about that? That sounds like a major thing.
Yeah, I'm okay to talk about it. Like, that was tough, because, on the mountainside there, I'm bleeding through my face, my head, my hands, legs. There's a chunk missing on my side. Like, there's blood pouring out everywhere. And I'm looking at pieces of my face. I mean, my left eye was hanging out of the socket, and I was feeling my face. I couldn't tell where my right eye was. And I knew that was it. I was going to die there. And I didn't know what happens. Like, do you pass out? Do you fall asleep? Is that how people die? Like, and there's so many things that go through your head, and then all of a sudden things just got calm. Like, you're going to die. Okay. And things
you felt okay with it, I guess.
You get accepted by it. Like, yeah, I accepted it. Like, that's it. There's no need to panic. I know what's going to happen. This is it. And it's just, how do I do it? Do I just lay there and wait for it to happen? Or do I cause it to happen? And I chose suicide. And I mean, that haunts me today, taught to say that I want to take the easy way out. So
you had come to accept it, and you said you felt calm. That's something. I don't even know how to characterize that, because you see, like, we see death all the time on movies and TV. And in my line of work, I talk to a lot of people who are dying, and it's incredible, because it's that one area that we never want to go as, like, living humans. We never want to approach that space. And then there are people who, like, let's say, have late stage cancer, who have to face that. And I think those are some of the most incredible conversations. And you were right there, and you had at the time accepted it. And it sounds like you were like, I'm going to end this early. And I imagine it was a result of the pain and like everything that was going on.
I think it's just more of the waiting period. What happens between now and then?
Yeah.
And just sitting there and having that unknown time, like just not knowing, how do you get to that point, I guess?
Like you knew you were going to die.
Yeah, it's just what's that window in between that happens, and that part scared me the most.
Okay,
is what happens between now and then? Do I go into like, I don't know, crazy shocks or flopping around? Like, is there intense pain? Like it just that unknown space. Like, you know, you're going to die. Just what happens in that little piece before that, or how long is it going to be?
Yeah, wow.
It's like, I guess, being stuck in traffic. Like, I know it's a bad thing to describe it to, but it's like you're just waiting there. Like, what do you do? And that part was probably the hardest for me, and I just wanted to end that part.
Yeah, yeah. That makes rational sense. As horrible as it is to think about it, that makes sense. Like the fear that you would have had of like what happens between now and the next hour, 20 minutes, 4 hours, 5 days, who knows? That's
right. And like, is there going to be pain and agony through that? And it's that unknown part that bothered me.
Yeah.
And then when I loaded up my rifle, you know, I put my chin on the barrel and I pulled the trigger and it didn't go off. It clicked. And I was like, where am I? Right. Like, it's just like a dream almost. And I remember I just like grabbed the gun and I moved it aside and I reached down to cycle the bolt again. And when I did, the bolt was tight. And as soon as I briefed on it, the gun went off. And
whoa,
my face was against the side of the barrel. And when it went off, and it was like, holy shit, like, what am I doing? Like, I gotta make it somewhere where they can find the body. Cause that just clicked in thinking that, like, I owed something to my wife to let her know that I tried. At least I didn't give up. And I think it was just that boom, you know, that bullet going next to my face that just kind of instilled that. But I guess a purpose, something to fill that time between now and when I die. It gave me a purpose in between there, something to endure, to, I guess, look forward to. I mean, I don't mean it in a, like, look forward to dying, but just give you something to fill that void, I guess, that empty space of you don't know what's going to happen.
In that period of time when you were extreme pain, like you've been mauled literally, and the time where you felt like, okay, I'm going to die, you felt like that gun going off kind of woke you up to a purpose, which was like, I owe my wife something. I owe her to at least try to get through that period.
To closure for her, to make it somewhere so she had fast closure, so she's not worrying and wondering what happened. Like, did I fall down a mountainside and bury me? Did I fight a bear? So then that made me start taking notes and pictures. Just to document, let her know that it was bad, that I just didn't give up.
Like on your phone, or you?
Yeah, I took a selfie and I took some other pictures too of my face and my hands, and a lot of them were pretty blurry, and there's some really bad ones.
Yeah.
There's one picture I'm okay with, but there's some worse ones that I just don't want to.
Okay with, as in, like, you can't go look at those pictures.
I can't. No, those are just too much.
Do you ever want to, or like, do you ever get tempted to, like, I imagine that's the darkest of the dark place.
I don't need to. I'm here.
Yeah.
I mean, do I have a desire to? No. Do I know where they are? Yeah, they're in an envelope on a USB disk. I can look at them at any time. And they sat there for 6.5, 7 years now. And they're sitting in a box labeled, sitting in I got a shoebox of mementos. So I got like my first love note, that's a love letter somebody written me, and like the first teddy bear I got from a girlfriend, and it's in there with that stuff. Like it's a memory. I just, not one that I probably would never open.
Yeah. Nice. You, without that, would you have survived, do you think, without that purpose?
No.
You would have just kind of given up.
Yeah. Because when you have no purpose, what's there to do?
Yeah, man. Whoa.
And I think that's what part of the driving force of that was my family.
Yeah.
And just seeing them again, or not seeing them again. It was just like, I knew I was going to die along the way. Like, it's just a matter, I knew I was going to die. It was just where I was going to die along the trail. And could I get to a spot where more people go so they'd find me quicker, so my wife would have less waiting time?
Okay.
I mean, I was supposed to go on a 4-day sheep hunt, and this was day 1. And this was the first 7-8 hours of the sheep hunt. And so my wife wouldn't start looking for me until 4 days later.
Sure.
I didn't show up. So it'd be 4 days, and she'd call for somebody to go look for my body. Like, hey, you didn't show up. Let's go look. And it'd probably be another week till somebody found me. So it'd be like 2 weeks of agony for her. And we had, like I said, a newborn or 8-month-old daughter. And so I wanted to make it somewhere where somebody's going to find me in that first weekend of the sheep hunt, so that it'd be closure for my wife before I'm supposed to be home. She would know. Like, that's, I guess, my thought at the time.
What'd you do next?
So I got up and wrapped my pieces of my face I had, tried to fold up the skin I had in my head with a sweatshirt. I put it on upside down, tied the sleeves underneath my jaw to help hold it up. And then I tied 2 knots in the back of my head, and I tried to stand up, but I didn't notice at the time, but all the ligaments in my right leg were severed at the knee. And so I just would fall over, and, it took me a while to finally figure out how to get to my feet. But the first 100 feet or so of the trail went down the mountainside and was fairly steep. And I got maybe 10, 15 feet down the trail, and I lost my footing, and I tumbled head over heels into a drainage and down about 200, 300 feet down to the bottom. And when I hit the bottom, when I was going down the trail, I had my gun as a cane.
Yeah.
And when I ended up at the bottom of the drainage, I was laying next to a creek. The sling of my gun was actually wrapped around my head. My arm was up, and I remember just laying face down on some big boulders, and I could hear this creek running. And I just remember I went to roll over, and the pain was excruciating. I could hardly, like I said, I could hardly turn over. I couldn't even hardly take a breath. Everything hurt. I managed to get my cell phone out of my pocket, and I sent a final goodbye to my wife.
Wow.
And I knew she's never going to get it until they found the body. But I pulled my phone out and let her know that I tried, honey. It actually was the message. And then laying there in so much pain, there's so many things that go through your head. Like, is I was going to see my daughter grow up, graduate. Is never going to be able to kick the first boyfriend out of the house, and like the fun stuff that you look forward to, right? As a dad. And I was never going to see my wife again. My first true love. I mean, we met in high school. I was 17, she was 15, and we've been inseparable ever since then. And so just those thoughts of things I was going to miss.
Yeah.
And just to help calm all that down, now I'm back into the waiting period of what's going to happen. And I couldn't move. I couldn't do anything. So I tried to play music on my phone just to help calm the thoughts. And,
Sure.
if I listen to a song, it helps put me to sleep. If listening to music. And so I figured I'd just listen to music and help calm the thoughts down, and I'd ultimately die there.
Yeah.
But the song that came on was on repeat, and it was a song I played for my daughter the night before while putting her in her bed, and it was Baby Shark. And so it was on repeat, and I joke about it, thinking like, if anyone had to listen to that song on repeat, it'd make you want to get away from it, right?
If that doesn't do you in.
Yeah. And the song was on repeat, and just listening to that just reminded me of my daughter and just gave me an extra push just to try.
Yeah. Very powerful. When you hear that song, what does it do now?
It makes me think of her.
Yeah.
It doesn't make me think of being down there in the bottom there. Like, I've been able to isolate that, and I don't think about that. It just helps me think about the good times with her.
It's amazing. I also sort of think that, like, without those intense drivers, like you had, again, like I talked about choice before, you had many opportunities just to say this was enough and you were done. I wonder, even without the purpose, we talk a lot about purpose, but this is like the most crystal clear example of how purpose gets you through something. It feels like if you didn't have your daughter and your wife, you probably wouldn't have survived.
Guaranteed.
I feel like that. You feel like that too?
100%.
Yeah. It's incredible.
Then one of the biggest driving forces, and that helped me get through even darker times, right? Like just having their support, having a loved one support, being there for you and helping you get through there. Like, they're going to be at the end of the line waiting for you.
Yeah. Did somebody find you? Like, how did you get out of the...
So I ended up hiking and crawling out over 12 kilometers to my truck. And
you could walked, I guess sort of limped out it.
Yeah, I limped, zombie walked, crawled. I know I crawled quite a bit of it.
Yeah.
Like army crawled. And then when my leg finally stiffened up enough, it was basically like a, I don't know, walk like a pirate, dragging my leg. And it was stiff enough that I could put weight on it, kind of. And then it'd shuffle more like. And I got to my truck and I drove 22 kilometers to a place called Panther River. And I drove into there. And at first I tried parking my truck in the parking lot, but I couldn't see well enough to get my vehicle between the other cars there. I know it seems kind of weird, and then I drove past the employees only sign and I felt guilty and I pulled right up to the lodge and parked right in front of the ramp to get up to the stairs, and I parked my truck there and I'm like, I shouldn't park here, like this is bad.
You're still being a good citizen. You're on death's doorstep, but you don't want a parking ticket.
That's right. Employees only. I don't work there. I know I felt like I drove up, I'm like, heck with it. They'll probably be okay with it. Be like,
they might understand this.
Yeah, they might.
You still probably got a parking ticket.
I know it's like my parking spot now, but no, I got up there, and I hobbled up the ramp and in there, and the first person to see me was a 9-year-old boy.
Whoa.
And I remember walking on the deck and seeing a small shadow move away from the window. And as I was opening up the door, I hear this kid just yell, "Grandma, Grandma, somebody's trying to play a prank." Because I looked like a zombie. And my shirt was wrapped up around, and partway out, I found an outfitter's setup, and I managed to wrap my face up with toilet paper, bounty sheets, and some vet wrap to help kind of stop the blood flow from some areas. And I remember these two ladies come in, and I couldn't tell what they looked like because, I could hardly see. And they're like, "Are you okay?" And the joke aside, people was like, "Yeah, I'm totally fine." No, I was like, "I got mauled by a bear. Here's my phone. Call my wife. I gave her my driver's license, and I said, get a pen. I gave her my Alberta healthcare number, my phone number, my wife's phone number, and I gave her my wallet. Like, this is who I am. Let my wife know that I'm okay." And I guess I tried to call her and at the lodge there, and it didn't work.
Wow.
And the ladies were kind of panicking. And they asked me if I needed anything. And I said, I need a glass of medium temperature water, no ice, and a straw. And so they gave me that. And I sat at the table there while they're trying to figure out what to do. And I was drinking my water, and the blood was dripping on the floor and on the table. And so I got down, I tried to get down to wipe the blood off the floor. And the lady's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm making a mess."
That's unbelievable.
And then from there, they managed to get a helicopter for me, a private helicopter. They flew me to Sundre. And being in the Sundre hospital, they didn't know what they were dealing with.
Yeah.
Then they threw me in an ambulance, shipped me off to Calgary to the Foothills Hospital.
Wow. How, what were some of the after effects? There's the PTSD piece, I think, was probably the biggest after effect of all this, I'd imagine.
Yeah, one of the biggest ones, like my eyes don't fully close. So my eyes stay about, I guess, a quarter of the way open when I sleep.
Okay.
It's awesome for babysitting, not so much for sleeping. I'm missing part of my hair, but I get half price haircuts because it's lifelong savings. So my pinky is all titanium, and sometimes when I make a fist, it doesn't quite sticks out. Sometimes I have to push it in. Those are just little things that it doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
Those are easy to look past, to get past.
Do you still go outdoors? Like, are you still an outdoorsman?
I still am. 48 hours of being out of the hospital, I was right back at it again.
Amazing.
You just, like I said, you can't give up on your passions in life just because of something like this.
I think I think your background is important too, because like, I don't think a lot of, electricians who are men in our culture, like, are okay to talk about mental health and their struggles. And I think you've been really open about it. It's been really cool to hear.
A lot of men struggle with mental health or talking about it. And that's one of the reasons why I got more into sharing my story and the book signings. I did a podcast. I had no clue what a podcast was. And I did a book signing in a small town, Eckville, at Stacy's Happy's place. It was the first book signing ever. And I had a lady that drove over 8 hours to come see me, saying that she heard my podcast and she suffered a very traumatic event.
Oh.
And she came to see me, to talk to me, let me know that me talking about it was helping her. And she actually, now, a year later, she sought more help, professional help, and she's able to actually be in public with other people. Wow. She had a very tragic incident that involved, I'm not really gonna say it, but it involved other people, and she couldn't be around.
Like an assault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she couldn't be around other people at all, and the marriage didn't go so well. She had a bunch of kids, and she couldn't function as a normal person. And now she actually works at a supermarket as a cashier, talking to people every day.
Wow.
And so just hearing her talk about like how I helped her kind of just made me, it's okay to talk about it. Like, it was helping people. And it actually helped me quite a bit too, talking about it. And just because you're a big tough guy that goes and fights bears doesn't necessarily mean you're mentally fit to look after somebody else. You need to be mentally fit first before you can take on that responsibility. And it's okay to ask for psychiatric help. It's a strength, not a weakness. And the other thing is, treat your mental health like the airbags on a plane. Put your mask on first before assisting others.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I learned, because I was in no situation to be able to look after my kid or my wife until I got mentally fit. Then I was able to accept more responsibilities.
What are some of the things you do now? Like, how do you stay mentally fit so that you can be there for your family?
One of the things I learned throughout the whole course of PTSD is being mindful. I keep a journal record, like having ADHD. Diet, exercise, and what you do in a day and amount of sleep affects the whole outcome and how much medication you should take. If I'm doing something I love doing, like hunting, I take less medication. If I change my diet, I have to take more or less medication based on diet and exercise. And if I'm doing something I hate that day, I got to take, or not hate, but dislike, I got to take more medication to help me get through it, to focus through it. And so it's being mindful of those things, keeping track in a journal and seeing that, hey, things are going to be stressful. Like, they're getting stressful for me. If I don't sleep as well, and maybe I need to go take a break, need to go take a walk, listen to some music, go for a walk in the wilderness and just get that fresh air, relax. And having that journal helps me see what's coming up.
What do you think it is that stops a lot of men from doing what you have done, which is like try and take care of yourself first, try and do some basics around mental health, maintenance, and fitness? What do you think's getting in the way of men doing that?
Well,
Or people? I mean, it's a people issue. I think men struggle with it more for some reason, and I don't have great insight into that.
it's hard to admit that you've hurt someone as being a man, like your family. Like, so I did cognitive thinking first with PTSD, and knowing the triggers and being able to avoid them or understand them before it happens and prepare myself. Like if somebody's getting a tray of ice out of the fridge, for cold drinks. Okay, it's just ice. It's not a big deal, right? Just prepare myself, be relaxed at that moment, or take myself out of the situation.
Yeah.
That was working good. What was hard for me was one day I fell asleep. I got home from work early, fell asleep on the couch, and my eyes don't fully close. My wife comes home with her daughter, who's 2.5 years old at the time. She sees my truck outside. She's, oh, Daddy's home. We get to play. And I'm on the couch. TV set's blaring, of course. My wife thinks I'm awake. My daughter thinks I'm awake. She comes running in and jumps on me. I go into immediate flashback because I think in the bear's there. Mm-hmm. I throw her across the room. She gets hurt. My wife is trying to hold me back because I'm flailing around on the couch. I fall and hit the ground. I split my head open. It was about 10, 15 minutes later. I come to. There's blood everywhere. Oh. My daughter's screaming. My wife is crying. She's just trying to go between me and her, like my daughter and myself, and she's ultimately destroyed at the situation. And I'm like, what are you doing here? There's a bear. Like, why am I at home? Like, there's a bear coming. Like, get out of here. And then it just, like a light bulb went on, and I realized what I did.
Yeah.
And I hurt the ones I love, my supporters, my biggest supporters. And that was hard. And I didn't want to go talk to somebody about it because I want to tell people that I hurt my family, you know. And I think a lot of men just don't want to tell that they hurt somebody. They feel so bad about that they just can't talk about that.
Get over the shame or the guilt or whatever of hurting someone.
That's a good way of putting it. Shame or hurt. You know, I don't want to go to a therapist and tell them, hey, I beat my wife. I hurt her. Like, I hurt my kids. I tried to commit suicide. Like, that's hard to tell somebody that you did that, that you're that, because, you know, you're afraid of getting locked up. Are you suicidal? Like, are you, you know, and that always plays a part in the back of your mind.
I sort of think that like there's this suicide epidemic in construction, right? And these are all folks who I think they feel more guilt, like they feel they'd rather take that exit of suicide than do what you did, which is like admit that I've hurt someone, or get like that there's a tension between two really intense, horrible emotions, shame and guilt, and like trying to relieve that. So I think there's just such a barrier for men, especially in these like industries and trades, and men who think about masculinity as like a core part of who they are. I think you're right. I think it's a shame and a guilt thing.
And I mean, you can still have masculinity and ask for help. I mean, who doesn't need help? Yeah. Everybody needs help at some point in time, and it's okay to ask. It's okay to accept it.
Yeah. That's the core. I think that's the core. It has to be the core message. It's okay to be masculine and ask for help.
Yeah,
because I think we have this cultural notion of like masculinity is you never ask for help. You are the rock. You're the person that does the thing. You know, you bring home the paycheck, all that crap, and it builds into this like persona, which just it doesn't exist. Like, you can't ask for help, and that's totally okay.
Yeah, that's totally fine. I mean, like I say, you can be the toughest guy in the world that fights bears, but we all need help at times. I mean, look at me. I mean, I need lots of help. I mean, it's, you know, every day is a struggle, but I don't see it that way. There's some things that I do need help with, and it's okay to ask. But if you ask for help, you got to be willing to do the homework too, and you got to be able to put you got to be able to go there. You got to be able to answer those tough questions. You got to be able to work with it. You can't just ask for help and have somebody hand you everything. You got to work for it. You got to want to
practice, train.
Yeah. And it's you can take a handout, but not take a handout. You got to want to go and pick it up off the table. Like, if somebody wants, I don't know, to borrow your cell phone, and you hand it to them, they got to, you know, like put it on the table. They got to want to pick it up, because once they pick it up, they're committed to it, and you got to keep working with it. So that's what I mean. Like don't physically take a handout. You can, but not physically. You got to be able to want to reach for it, pick it up, and go. Are
you still doing therapy? Like, you still talk to people? I mean, you're you're open about your story, and that's helpful, but do you still like have a therapist and you still kind of work through some stuff on this?
I don't have a therapist that I go see on a regular basis. I made some friends, or one of my lifetime friends is a social worker, and I talked to him, and actually two of my good friends are social workers and one's a psychiatrist, and we still talk quite a bit, and I have rough times, and I call them up and we walk through things, and they just help me review my notes and go back to what I've learned and build back off of that. It's just more of guidance. Hey, you should look this way, not telling me exactly what to do, but hey, maybe we should go back through your journal. Let's see what some of the triggers were, some of the stresses were. Like, are you sleeping all right? What's going on in your life? Just really basic questions to help. Oh, yeah, maybe I should go look at that. Yeah, that makes sense.
I think that's an important thing too, when we're talking specifically about men's mental health, and even in construction, like that peer relationship. It seems like less of a barrier to go chat with a friend about something. We're still hesitant to do that, I think, but you've used your friends and your network in a pretty strong way to help to get you through difficult times.
Well, I mean, it all began with him taking me to the hospital that one day and saying, do you like the way you live? And after the episode with my wife and daughter, I was wishing that the gun went off and ended my life on the side of the mountain there, because I didn't want to live through that or put anybody through that amount of pain. Like, even the people I hate the most, I never want to see them suffer from PTSD, because that's the worst thing ever. Like, I don't wish that on anybody, and I want to help people that have it, because it's not fun. And that being able to ask for help a second time was hard. Like, reaching out for help, even when it feels impossible, it can be the catalyst of transformation. I went to my friend and I was complaining about life. And he said, "So you don't like what's going on right now?" I'm like, "No, I don't." He goes, "Do you open to try something different?" I'm like, "What? Talk to another therapist? Are you crazy? Like, it didn't work last time." And I'm not going to tell him that I'm suicidal and that I tried to hurt my wife and kid. Like, I'm not going to talk about that. And he's like, "Well, think about it. You don't like what you're doing now. Why not try something different? And if it doesn't work, well, at least you already know what the outcome is going to be like. Well, you might learn something along the way." And that struck with me, like you did at the hospital. Like, do you like the way you're living now? And did a little more research, talked to the current therapist I had, and we did some research into different types of other PTSD treatments. Yeah. And I got into ART. And I went into the first session of that.
Can you talk a little bit about what that is?
ART, accelerated resolution therapy. And looking up online, it was like voodoo stuff. Like, I was like, okay, this is a little strange. Yeah. I get in there, and of course, this is during COVID. So you got the face shield on, you got the mask on, and then, you're already not used to being around people. Well, the therapist, she got right up next to me, like literally like touching my chair. And she's like, "You ready?" And I'm like, "Yeah." But actually, before we started that, she's like, "You don't need to tell me your story." This is just me kind of paraphrasing that, there's a little more in depth, but she's like, "You don't need to tell me about your story. Like, you suffer from trauma." She's really nice about it. But like I said, this is just me kind of cutting it quick. And she's like, "Well, I want you to replay what happened in your head, and we'll do different sections of it. And I'll stop you, and then we'll address the emotion or the pressure that you feel in your body." And so she got nice and close. I'm thinking, okay, this is a little weird. And she starts waving her hand in front of my face. And at first I'm thinking, okay, this is BS. Like, how is this going to help? I'm looking at a hand in front of my face, trying to think of a bear chewing on me. And I'm like, no, like, this is not for me. Like, this is bogus. And it did a couple of minutes of that. And she stopped me and she's like, "How do you feel?" I'm like, "This is stupid." And
this is stupid.
Like, how is this going to help? Like, looking at your hand, right? And I sit there like, wait a second. I'm in this for a reason. She's an expert in her field. I don't like what I'm doing right now, and it's not working for me. I need to trust her that she knows what she's doing, and need to trust this type of treatment. And I need to...
If you wanted to make a change.
If I want to make a change, because why am I there?
Yeah.
I'm not there because someone made me. I'm there because I want to be there. And and I got to be able to accept or try what she's trying to help me with, because she's there to help. She's not non-judgmental. She's there to support me. And I went for the help, and I need to do my part of the exercise. Like, I need to do my homework.
Sure.
And so I took a 5-minute break and was like, oh God, like what, like, this is crazy. And, you know, got a glass of water, walked down the hallway, then went back in. I'm like, let's do this. We finished that 45-minute session. And that was the first time in 3.5 years that I slept for more than 7 hours straight. No nightmares or flashbacks.
What was it? What do you think was the thing that helped the most?
It's I would say like reprogramming my brain.
Yeah.
When an ice drink comes out and you hear that sound, I'm thinking, yes, ice cold drinks, you know, a margarita or something's coming up, or or iced tea. And it's not, it just helps disassociate from that sound. Like, it just totally, like, it reprograms your brain. Like, that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. When I see a bear, is it a good thing or a bad thing? No, it's not a bad thing. It's just a bear. It's
just
not
a thing.
It's just a thing. It's not there to come eat me. It's not there to, like, it's just a thing. It just helps me disassociate.
Do you still get flashbacks and nightmares?
Yes, and yes, I do. This year was the first time that I had a really rough week around the anniversary.
Yeah.
We were selling a house, buying a house, moving, and it was all the anniversary, and I started a new job all at the same time.
Okay. You just recently did this?
Yeah, this was in last year in August, around the anniversary. Plus, I did a couple interviews at the same time talking about it. So I set myself up. Like, I was looking through my journal. I'm like, I'm having so many nightmares. You know, I need a phone. And I'm like, wait a second. I just caused all this. Like, selling the house is stressful. Buying a house. Yeah. Switching careers, or not switching careers, but switching to a type of work that you've never done before. Yeah. And moving, dealing with 2 young kids while this is all happening, and starting school.
Being on a damn podcast is stressful.
Yeah, definitely podcast. Like, I don't even know what a podcast is.
So now you know. Now you know what I deal with. That's I'm really excited to hear you're doing better. And I think the folks listening to this will be as inspired as I am about all the tools that you put in place. The purpose of how you work through that, the darkest moment that anyone could ever imagine, through purpose. And years after that, like, just using purpose, and also the mental health skills, the journaling, the reaching out to peers. I think so many people need to listen to this, especially the tough guys. You know, like, you're pretty much the most badass person there is, and you reached out for help, and you're vulnerable and open to talk about it. That's such a powerful message. And I'm just grateful that you came on the show to share that experience.
Well, thank you. And one of the biggest things from this is talking to people. I want to help. And I opened up my own charity through the University of Calgary for research into PTSD evidence-based treatments for the individual. And because I want to make sure if somebody goes in for a PTSD treatment, I want to make sure they get it right the first time, because it's really hard putting yourself out a second time. Yeah. And even if you have to go through a second treatment, like, it may take several treatments and several different treatments in a long time, but once the puzzle pieces come back together, it's an overwhelming feeling. Like, it's, and so I want everybody who suffers from PTSD to actually get that help, to be able to get to that point where I'm at, where you can share your story, where you are the survivor, and it's a different experience for you. Like, it's a life experience. It's not controlling your life. And so I started up this charity through the University of Calgary, one for the PTSD research into best-based treatment methods. And how do you get the courage and navigate the system? Because once you're in there, do you do ART? Do you do cognitive thinking? Do you do the hallucinogenics? Like, which one's best for you? And I want to do research into that so that it's something that helps. Well, I mean, I could do a charity and just pick, 100 people a year and get them treated, but that's not really, it's affecting quite a few people, but I want to affect a larger mass over a longer period of time. Like, I started up the charity. My goal is to raise $5 million And it's to the University of Calgary for a chair position for those 2 reasons.
Okay.
And that money gets vested, and the proceeds off of that is actually what runs the research.
Beautiful.
So it'll be there forever, not just a short time. And I really struggle asking for donations. As anybody who goes on the donation page, there's, I think, $1,700 to $2,000 on there, and that's all I've raised in a year. I really struggle asking for help with that, just because I'd rather give it than. And I want to hit that $5 million goal, and I want it to be there forever, and not just because, like I said, I struggle asking for donations. Once I hit that $5 million, I don't have to ask any more people for donations. It's there forever, and it's something that we can all learn off of.
Awesome. Well, as an organization, we'll donate. We could probably put the link up on our site when we post this. So that's another reason I wanted to have you on the show, because of our reach. I want to get your message out. I want people to donate to your cause, and we can help with that, and we'll absolutely do that.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome.
And I like travel around, and I do inspirational speaking for companies and teaching them about setting small goals, how you can overcome adversity. The indomitable human spirit lives within each one of us, and how do you get that out? What's some of the things that you can do to get yourself out of the darkest times to overcome adversity? And reaching out for help is not a weakness; it's a strength.
How do people get a hold of you?
They can reach out on my webpage at grizzlydude.ca.
Grizzlydude.ca. Okay, that's easy to remember. Good.
And the reason why it's Grizzly Dude is the 9-year-old boy that saw me, he called me the Grizzly Dude. And that, because they didn't know my name, and that's what they called me, as the Grizzly Dude. So when I was in the hospital, my wife, we made like little Grizzly Dude things, wrote the book. And when the book was going to come out, I created the logo, Grizzly Dude, and a slogan, "You can bear it even when you think you can't," because I like puns. And I figured I was trying to promote it at work. And then it turned into T-shirts, hats. Well, I know it's probably kind of lame, but I got...
Nice.
Yeah. Grizzly Dude.
That's a tight logo.
Yeah.
Looks like your work, Ben. It's something you would do. I like it. That's awesome. So grizzlydude.ca. We'll post that too when we post this, and try and just spread the word about what you're trying to do. So I think it's incredible, and we need more of it.
I appreciate it. Thank you. And then also the fund is called the Grizzly Dude Fund.
Okay.
So yeah. And you get links to the fund also through the webpage at grizzlydude.ca, and you can reach out for doing inspirational speaking or a corporate training. Go fly around and share my story, and we go through the pictures and a lot of roller coaster of emotionals. Like in this episode here, this podcast here is pretty emotional to talk about it, but it helps me. And there's not a show I've done yet where I haven't broken down. And as I get through more and more, I'm able to share more and more and help, it helps me get through it too.
Well, that's good. And that's, coming into this, I was sort of wondering how guarded might you be about the topic, or how forthright, or how in depth you want to get into it. And you really brought it. So we appreciate that. And it was awesome. I always say this, you can feel a good interview and a good conversation. And I felt it, man. I feel your emotion and your strength, and it's just awesome having you on the show. So thanks for coming on.
Thank you. This was a lot of fun.
Cool.